We're taught from the time we're kids that family is everything, that no matter what happens, no matter how they treat you, you should forgive, you should stay, you should endure. But what if that loyalty is actually hurting you? What if love is being used not to lift you up but to keep you down? What if the people closest to you are the very ones stopping you from becoming who you truly are? Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of all time, understood this quiet, invisible struggle. He didn't just study the mind, he uncovered the hidden emotional forces inside families that can keep us stuck. Guilt, shame, emotional manipulation, deep inherited wounds passed down like family heirlooms. Now, Jung never said we should just cut people off. What he said was, see clearly. And once you see clearly, you can't unsee. This video isn't about rebellion, it's about self-respect. It's about recognizing behaviors that are not okay, even when they come from people you love, and finding the courage to say, this is not love, this is not okay, not anymore. Let's get into it. 1. Emotional manipulation. They say they love you, but that love has strings attached. If you really cared about me, you'd do this. You're hurting me by living your own life. You're so selfish. It starts small, a guilt trip here, an emotional outburst there, some unspoken rules you're just expected to follow. But over time, you start to shrink. You start second-guessing yourself. You bury your needs just to keep the peace. Carl Jung had a name for this. He called it psychic possession. When someone else's unresolved emotions start living inside your mind, quietly steering your actions. And here's the thing. Most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. A parent might truly believe they're helping you, but underneath that, a refusal to face their own pain, so they try to manage that pain through you. You become the fixer, the peacekeeper, the emotional sponge, the scapegoat, the savior. But none of those are your job. You weren't born to carry someone else's emotional baggage, especially not an adult's. If you keep tolerating this kind of manipulation, you'll stay stuck in their unconscious patterns that were never yours to begin with. The first step is to see it for what it is. You don't have to hate them, but you do have to stop enabling the cycle. 2. Suppression of your true self. Don't talk like that. Why do you always have to be so different? You're embarrassing us. Sometimes the most painful rejection doesn't come from strangers. It comes from your own family. They don't always yell. Sometimes they just shame you, quietly, consistently. They shape you into what they think you should be, while slowly erasing who you actually are. Carl Jung believed that every human being is on a journey, a process he called individuation. It's the journey of becoming whole, becoming fully, authentically you. But this path, it's often blocked by culture, by tradition, by religion, and yes, even by family. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what happens when your family sees that real version of you as a threat? Maybe you think differently, you dress differently, you choose a different career, or maybe you just feel different, and that makes them uncomfortable. So they try to shape you into something more acceptable, because your freedom reminds them of their fear. But here's the truth. You are not here to make anyone comfortable. You are not here to be a mirror for someone else's expectations. You are not here to live your life by someone else's script. You're here to be whole, fully. And if someone, even a parent, even a sibling, needs you to shrink in order to feel safe, that is not love. That's control. They might love the version of you that stays small, that stays quiet, that stays predictable. But the real you, the one that shines bright and takes up space, that's the version that deserves to be loved, fully, without conditions. 3. Constant criticism disguised as concern. I'm only saying this because I care. I just don't want you to make a mistake. You're too sensitive. Some family members will wrap cruelty in the language of love. Their words sting, but they wear the mask of honesty, of concern, of just trying to help. But deep down, it doesn't feel like love. It feels like judgment. It feels like rejection. Jung warned us about this, about what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't want to admit exist, the dark, unacknowledged corners of the psyche. And here's the hard truth. People who constantly criticize you are often projecting their own shadows onto you. When they say, "You'll never succeed doing that," they may be speaking from their own unhealed failure. Because your peace matters, your healing matters, your boundaries matter. Let me say that again for the people in the back. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for saying, "This is not okay." And you are definitely not broken for walking away from people who refuse to see you clearly. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But that's exactly where healing begins. Not in waiting for someone else to change, not in begging for an apology that might never come, but in declaring, "I deserve better, even if no one ever told me that before." Because safety, respect, and love, those are not luxuries. They're not optional. They're non-negotiable. Here's part 3 of the rewritten script. So here's your permission. Right here, right now, stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for your needs. Stop tolerating what hurts you. You were never meant to live in someone else's shadow. You were meant to live fully, freely, and as your whole self. What we've explored today, through the lens of Carl Jung's work, is more than just a list of red flags. It's a mirror, a moment of truth, a deep invitation to look at your life, your relationships, your patterns, and ask, is this helping me grow, or is this keeping me stuck? Because here's the reality. We all come from families with flaws. We all carry emotional inheritance, things unspoken, unresolved, passed down like family heirlooms, guilt, shame, silence, obligation. They sneak into how we speak, how we think, how we love. But Carl Jung taught us something powerful. We are not doomed to repeat what we inherited. We can break the cycle. We can do something radical. We can choose differently. That doesn't always mean cutting people out of your life. It might just mean seeing things clearly, finally. It might mean setting boundaries where there were none before. It might mean redefining what love and respect look like for you, because the moment you see clearly, the moment you become aware, you can't go back. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't keep calling pain normal or abuse just their personality. Jung's work reminds us that true healing doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from choosing ourselves, not in a selfish way, but in a soul-honoring way. So if this message resonates with you, take a moment. Breathe. Let that truth land. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to outgrow relationships. You are allowed to protect your energy, your joy, your voice. And yes, even if that means upsetting people, even if it means rewriting your whole story from scratch, you were not born to be someone else's emotional dumping ground. You were not born to be guilted into silence or shaped into a version of yourself that fits someone else's comfort zone. You were born to be whole. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So if you've ever felt trapped by family dynamics, if you've ever wondered whether you were being too sensitive, too selfish, or too much for wanting space, let this video be your confirmation. You're not too sensitive. You're becoming aware. You're not selfish. You're waking up. You're not too much. You're just no longer willing to be less. And that's something to be proud of. Before you go, if this video stirred something in you, if it helped you understand a part of yourself better, consider liking it. Your support helps others discover these messages. And if you want more videos like this, ones that explore the mind, the soul, and everything in between, hit that subscribe button. There's so much more coming your way. In the comments, I'd love to hear from you. What's been your experience with setting boundaries in family or close relationships? What have you learned about yourself in the process? Let's keep this conversation going, because healing isn't a solo journey. It's something we do together through truth, compassion, and courage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. When they say you're not strong enough, they may be revealing their own fear of weakness. They don't deal with their pain, they just pass it along. And if you're not careful, you'll absorb it, you'll believe it. That voice will start sounding like truth, like home. But it's not. Jung believed projection is one of the biggest barriers to self-awareness. He said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But when that irritation becomes constant criticism, it turns into a weapon. You don't owe anyone access to your dreams, your ideas, your heart, especially when they use that access to tear you down. Yes, even if they're just being honest. Yes, even if they're family. You can love someone and still reject the roles they try to force onto you. The failure, the disappointment, the one who's never enough. You are not a canvas for someone else's unhealed pain. You are not their emotional landfill. You deserve better. 4, guilt is a tool of control. You never call me anymore after everything I've done for you. If you leave, it'll break my heart. It sounds like love, but it's not. It's guilt dressed up as affection. And it's not about connection, it's about control. Carl Jung understood just how powerful guilt can be, especially when it comes from the people we feel we owe everything to. Our parents, our elders, even siblings. When they use guilt to sway your choices, it doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels wrong to resist. It feels like betrayal to say no. It feels like abandonment to set a boundary. But let's get one thing clear. Guilt is not love, and guilt is not morality. When someone guilt trips you into making decisions that benefit them at the cost of your own well-being, they're not asking you to be kind. They're asking you to abandon yourself. And the cost of that, it's enormous. You start questioning your own desires. You second-guess every decision. You start asking, will this upset them? Instead of asking, is this right for me? Little by little, you stop living your life. You start living theirs. You become a ghost in your own story. You look around and realize, I don't even recognize this version of myself anymore. And the scariest part, you feel trapped, not because you physically are, but because emotionally you've been conditioned to believe that your freedom equals someone else's pain. But here's the truth. Setting boundaries does not make you ungrateful. Creating space does not mean you don't love them. Saying no is not a betrayal, it's awareness, it's growth. It's you waking up to the patterns that have shaped you and deciding you're not going to keep passing them on. Because real love, deep, authentic love, doesn't try to hold you back. It says, I want you to be free, even if that's hard for me. And yes, some people might never understand that, but that's okay. You don't need their permission to grow. You just need your own. 5, verbal and emotional abuse. Normalized as just how they are. They didn't mean it. It's just how they talk. They're old-fashioned. You know how they are. How many times have you heard that? Or told yourself that? Carl Jung believed that what we normalize in childhood becomes the foundation of what we tolerate as adults. And what's familiar often feels like love. So if yelling, shaming, ignoring, or emotional coldness was part of how your family communicated, you might have learned to accept that as normal, as just what relationships look like. But let's be real. Constant insults, that's not love. Being ignored or dismissed, that's not love. Shaming you into silence, that's not love. It doesn't have to be physical to be abuse. Words alone can do lasting damage. When someone constantly pushes past your emotional boundaries, mocks your pain, gaslights your reality, and then expects you to forgive and forget without ever doing the work to change, That's not a relationship. That's control. Jung often spoke of the wounded inner child, the part of us that still craves love from the places we first felt pain. And that's why so many of us stay in these cycles. Not because we're weak, but because we were never taught what healthy love really looks like. So we keep returning to familiar dynamics thinking if we just love them hard enough, it'll get better. But here's the terrifying part. The longer you stay in those patterns, the more you begin to believe you deserve them. That this is just what love is supposed to feel like. Jung would challenge that. He'd tell you that the bravest thing you can do is not to endure more pain, but to stop the cycle altogether. To say, I see this for what it is. I will not pass this pain forward. I will not carry this legacy of silence and suffering, even if it's family. And even if they never understand, even if they call you selfish, even if they never apologize.